Good day. Hope you're doing well today. Today we have another article from Screen Rant, and it's dated July 23rd, 2019 by James Hunt. And it's about Star Wars keeps retconning what the Sith are. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video, as it really does help out the channel a lot. So let's get into it now. Star Wars is bringing back the Sith in Star Wars 9 thanks to the presence of Sith troopers. But that's just the latest example of the saga retconning what the Sith really are. The Sith have a long, complex history in both Star Wars canon and legends, dating all the way back to George Lucas's original plans for the series. The Sith are, of course, the direct opposite to the Jedi. They're the dark side to the Jedi's light, the yin to their yin. However, while the Sith played a major role in the galaxy, their part in the Star Wars was seemingly over when Darth Vader killed Emperor Palpatine and returned to the light side, thus meaning there was no Sith alive. It's true, that's what they say, that there was no more Sith alive after Sidious died and Vader died. Enter Star Wars 9, which is bringing back Palpatine and as such the Sith, but it's also introducing a new twist in the mix with the form of Sith troopers. These are a new addition to canon, but Star Wars has actually been changing Sith constantly, almost since the very beginning. The word Sith is never actually said in the Star Wars original trilogy, but that doesn't mean George Lucas hadn't already thought up the term. Indeed, the Sith are present in his early story ideas for what later would become Star Wars. In Star Wars The Rough Draft, written in 1974, Lucas has the Jedi Bendu as legendary but near-extinct warriors who are being hunted down by the Knights of Sith. This version of the Sith was to be in order working directly for Emperor Palpatine, which Lucas envisioned as being similar to Adolf Hitler's Staffel. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. So it's interesting that Lucas had the Jedi Bendu. And if you remember from Star Wars Rebels, there's Bendu as a character, that big mountain kind of creature. So that's kind of really interesting, and that was done in 1974. Well, let's keep going on. Of course, over the course of Lucas's change, they became the Black Knights of the Sith and eventually Dark Lords of the Sith. These initial story plans included other Sith, including Prince Valorum, a Sith Knight who dressed in black armor and eventually turned against the Empire to join the heroes. The Sith's role in Star Wars was condensed down, with parts of Valorum's character being amalgamated with General Darth Vader, who became a Lord of the Sith as per the screenplay and official Star Wars novelization, even if he wasn't called that in the movies. So that's pretty cool. Prince Valorum, and as if you remember, in Episode 1, you have Chancellor Valorum, and he was, I guess, the name itself was a Sith Knight, but he amalgamated the Valorum character and the Sith to call Darth Vader General, which is pretty cool, and then became Lord of the Sith. But, of course, you don't hear that in the original trilogy. Let's move on. The Sith in prequel expanded universe. After the original trilogy, but prior to the prequels, much of what was being created within the Star Wars galaxy came from the expanded universe, a series of books, comics, video games, and other media that continued the stories of our beloved Star Wars heroes and also considerably developed the mythology and lore of the entire universe, which included the Sith. I've read so many of those books that, like the Iron Fist, oh man, just so many of the books that I've read. I've got a lot of them still paperback that I have on bookshelves. Have you all read some of the expanded universe books? Let me know, because I don't want to be the only one that had. Let's move on. Star Wars Tales of the Jedi continued to tell stories of the Sith and flesh out their history with the comic book run, first published in 1993, detailing the Great Sith War and eventually the fall of the Sith Empire, events that took place thousands of years before the original trilogy. That in turn had a major influence in two seminal Star Wars works, Star Wars The Old Republic and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, since they built upon the setting created by the Tales of the Jedi and events and elements depicted within, such as the planet Korriban and the Great Hyperspace War. Tales of the Jedi was also an influence on Yavin 4, which was retconned to include Sith temples after it became a Sith-occupied planet during the series. And I read those, the Tales of the Jedi books. Yeah. And they were really, really, really good. 1991's comic book series Dark Empire, written by Tom Veitch and illustrated by Cam Kennedy, was another of the first and most notable inclusions of the Sith in the Star Wars expanded universe, prior to the prequel trilogy. Set after Return of the Jedi, it finds Emperor Palpatine coming back to life in clone bodies, attempting to turn Luke and Leia before eventually fighting against them. The idea of the Sith living after death wasn't uncommon after this. The Jedi Academy trilogy featured the fallen Jedi Exar Kun, who previously appeared in the Tales of the Jedi and also the Old Republic comic series, whose dark spirit served as the series' antagonist. Something similar happens with another Dark Lord of the Sith, Marka Ragnos, who again made appearances in the comics before his spirit, a Force ghost, was the villain in Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. So I also read the Jedi Academy trilogy, and that was a really good book. The trilogy books were really awesome. Let's move on. The Sith species. Although the Sith in Star Wars movies, there is also a Sith race, aka Red Sith, or Sith purebloods, who, according to Star Wars legends, were the original race from which the Sith Order eventually derived. The Sith were a species of red-skinned humanoids who lived on the planet Korriban and were preternaturally drawn to and gifted in the dark side of the Force. Alongside the red skin, they were notable for their facial tentacles and bone spurs. The Sith fought amongst themselves for thousands of years before eventually forming an empire that was ruled over by a Dark Lord. Around 6,900 years before the Battle of Yavin, or BBY, the coming after the 100-year darkness, a group of exiled Dark Jedi landed on Korriban. Their skill in the dark side of the Force made them seem like gods to the remaining Sith species, and the two began to inbreed for thousands of years, leading to the formation of the Sith Empire. The Sith in the prequels. For all the Sith are very much considered an intrinsic and iconic part of Star Wars, and they were present in George Lucas's original ideas, it's the much maligned prequel trilogy that does a lot of the heavy lifting as far as the Sith's place in Star Wars canon is concerned. It's here the word Sith is used for the first time in the Star Wars film, and the rules and the philosophies they adhered to begin to be fleshed out. In The Phantom Menace, the Sith return from the millennia of hiding thanks to the rise of Darth Sidious, who's masquerading as Senator Sheev Palpatine and his apprentice Darth Maul. Although it wouldn't be completely described until Star Wars The Clone Wars. It's in The Phantom Menace that the rule of two was introduced to Star Wars canon. That is the idea that there's only ever two Sith at any one time, a master who wield the power of the dark side, and an apprentice to train under them until they're ready to take their place. This rule of two, however, clashed with what the expanded universe had established about the Sith, which was as a grand empire that had fallen and risen many times. To get around it, it was introduced that Bane had killed all the Sith and then implemented the rule of two philosophy. The Darth Bane series is actually really, really good. Definitely recommend people read that. Alright, let's move on. This was all part of a grand revenge plan orchestrated by Darth Sidious, who climbed the ranks of the Galactic Senate, manipulating those around him until he was ready to fully strike, which included executing Order 66, the destruction of all Jedi, and installing himself as Emperor. In Palpatine's story, too, we find another key addition to Sith Lord, thanks to the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. This isn't just to convince Anakin to join him, but also establishes how the Sith were driven by a quest of immortality and power, and further hammers home the idea of constant betrayal between master and apprentice. It was in the prequel trilogy, too, that the prophecy of the Chosen One was first revealed, with the Jedi believing that this savior would be the one to destroy the Sith. Anakin, believed to be the Chosen One, ended up joining the Sith instead, as a devastated Obi-Wan pointed out to him on Mustafar. "You were the Chosen One, Anakin." But Obi-Wan had the high ground. Haha. The Sith after the Clone Wars. After the prequel trilogy, Lucasfilms continued the story with the animated series Star Wars The Clone Wars, which furthered itself, fleshed out the mythology of the universe, and made some big changes to what's come before. Much of this came to Season 6 Sacrifice, where Yoda traveled to the Sith's home world. In Star Wars The Clone Wars, the Sith's home world of Korriban was changed to Moraband, although they're essentially the same planet by two different names. Here it's also revealed that Sith cannot become Force ghosts, contradicting what the EU had previously established, though the likes of Marco Ragnos. But it's since been revealed in the book Aftermath that they can drain the Force energy of other individuals, strengthening their connection to the Force and extending their lives. It's in Star Wars The Clone Wars that Darth Bane is formally introduced too, appearing as a vision to Yoda's mission on Moraband. This is where the Clone Wars became particularly important in what we know of Sith, because it stripped away a lot of the previously established lore behind them, leaving instead only Bane and his rule of two as a means of effectively tidying up the mythology. Our understanding of the light and dark is enhanced too, thanks to the Mortis arc, which introduces the son and the daughter, two Force beings, one for each side, who keep the Force in perfect balance, which shifts things away from the idea of the Sith needing to be destroyed in order to become a perfect balance. Star Wars 9 appears to be bringing the Sith back in a big way. Emperor Palpatine will somehow return in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which may establish that he learned the final skill his own master Darth Plagueis never did, the ability to cheat death oneself. If that is the case, then it's another power skill to be attributed to the Sith, but while that's speculation, what we know for sure is that Star Wars 9 will include Sith troopers. These red troopers were revealed just before San Diego Comic-Con, and while their appearance is striking, it's the word Sith in their name that's most intriguing, because there are so far haven't been any Sith in Disney's sequel trilogy. The name suggests they might be connected to Palpatine, but the fact they're supposed to be the next evolution of the First Order Stormtroopers instead fits with them working with Kylo Ren. This is another big change because Sith troopers first appeared in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic as soldiers of the Sith Empire. That could be setting up Kylo Ren to become a true Sith himself in Star Wars 9, or it might simply be adopting the name for another purpose, taking it away from the Sith Empire and Dark Lords of the Sith as previously established in canon, and applying it to the Stormtroopers. This wouldn't be a big change in the name of the Sith in Star Wars 9, but it also looped back around to the original ideas that George Lucas had for the Sith. Prince Valorum, one of the original Sith, became a Stormtrooper. Now, Star Wars is giving the Sith named to Stormtroopers too. It's like it almost rhymes. So what do you think about that article? Did you read the older Expanded Universe books? If you did, what was your favorite book or trilogy out of that? It'll be definitely interesting to see these red stormtroopers and exactly how they fit into the new trilogy. Are they Palpatine stormtroopers? Are they Kylo Ren's? Are they Snoke's? It would just be really interesting to know. I think they look okay. I mean, it's just stormtrooper, armor in red, but I guess it could be kind of cool. I think we're gonna see some good stuff happen in Star Wars 9. Maybe that's just my hopes. I hope that Star Wars 9 will help what The Last Jedi didn't, and, you know, close out the story arc, and that it all connects it all together like J.J. Abrams says. That's my hopes, and I'm going to stick to that. So, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. We try and do news here every day, sometimes twice a day. So, keep watching out, subscribe, like and share this video with others, because it really does help out everything. Alright, take care, have an awesome day.